Hello and welcome! In this video, we're going to start into a brand new chapter, which is Chapter 2, Ecology. Once again, I'm Miss Delia, and if you're ready, let's continue with the lesson. Chapter 2 is mainly divided into 2.1 to 2.4 and then later 2.5 population ecology because 2.1 to 2.4 it's kind of its own thing. So we're going to focus on these first and we will go straight into 2.1 ecosystem concept. As usual, before we go into the content itself, let's have a look at the learning outcomes. I hope that by the end of this lesson, you would be able to define an ecosystem and also describe the lake ecosystem and the terrestrial ecosystem of tropical rainforest. Now, let's have a move on. We'll start with the ecosystem concept itself. To look at it straight on, the ecosystem is the interaction between the biotic and the abiotic components in an ecosystem. If you want the really long definition, here is a definition according to Odom in 1969. The basic functional unit of nature, including both organisms and their non-living environment, each interacting with the other and influencing each other's properties, and both necessary for the maintenance and development of the system, is the longer definition for ecosystem. But we usually don't use this long one. We can just go with the short one, which is ecosystem, interaction, biotic, abiotic. Each ecosystem will require an energy input from the sun, either directly or indirectly, and energy will flow through an ecosystem in a one-way direction. Energy in an ecosystem cannot be recycled, only nutrients are recycled. And when we look at energy, we're usually looking at it in terms of chemical energy or heat energy. Now let's move on into talking about the components of the ecosystem. When we say ecosystem, it will consist of biotic components, abiotic components, the interactions between or among biotic components, as well as the interactions between biotic and abiotic components. Biotic components are, of course, the living components in that ecosystem, the component of an ecosystem that comprises of communities of organisms. So these organisms could be autotrophs or producers of that ecosystem. They could also be the heterotrophs or consumers. If they are heterotrophs or consumers, they could be herbivores, they could be carnivores, they could also be omnivores or detritivores. In case you kind of forgot, detritivores are organisms that eats detritus ataupun benda-benda yang sudah mati. So contohnya cacing tanah adalah detritivore sebab dia makan benda-benda yang sudah mati seperti daun yang reput. And last but not least, we also have decomposers. So decomposers are organisms that breaks down organic materials and then uses the decomposition products to supply it with energy. Those are the biotic components. As for the abiotic components, they are non-living chemical and physical factors. So they can be temperature, light, water, and nutrients. And these are things that are found in the atmosphere. They could also be made up of gases and airborne particles that will envelop the earth. And that is it about the biotic and abiotic components. To make things more clear, we're going to look at two examples of ecosystems. The first ecosystem that we'll have a look at is the lake ecosystem. So this is an example that I have here. This image is actually of the Atabat Lake in Pakistan. And as you can see, it's different from the Tasik Chini and lakes that we have in Malaysia. When we're talking about lakes in this chapter or whenever you're learning about ecology, do keep in mind that lakes bigger than the ones we see in our country exist. So, kalau macam di Malaysia, biasanya kita punya tasik ini yang kira macam cetek lah kalau dibandingkan dengan luar negara. Yang luar negara punya dia adalah seluas dan sedalam apa yang ditunjukkan dalam gambar ini. Okay, so keep that in mind. Lakes that we're talking about in this chapter can be bigger than what you're used to. But before we continue, it's good to agree on what is a lake. A lake is a body of standing fresh water produced by geological processes. So as long as it's staying still and it's fresh water, we can count it as a lake. And a lake can be divided into zones or communities of plants and animals. The abiotic factors in a lake ecosystem can be the sum or amount of light, the type of substrate and habitat, the nutrients, and we also, when we're talking about the lake ecosystems, we'll be looking at the food chains in the lake ecosystem. So examples of food chains that you can have in lakes is phytoplankton, eaten by zooplankton, eaten by small fish eaten by large fish, and large fish eaten by birds such as kingfisher or other water birds. And when we're talking about lake ecosystems and dividing it into zones, the lake zonation is based on the first factor, light penetration. And according to light penetration, we can divide that place into photic zones and aphotic zones. Photic zone, kawasan yang kena cahaya matahari. Aphotic zone ataupun profundal zone adalah kawasan yang tidak cukup cahaya matahari. We can also divide the lake into zones based on the distance from the shore and water depth. Jarak dia daripada tebing dan kedalaman air. So, if it is closer to the shore and the water is shallow, we can call it a littoral zone. If it is further from shore and the water is deep, we call it a limnetic zone. So you can see here, this is how we divide it into photic and aphotic zone. Dan kalau dia cetek dekat kepada tebing, kita panggil dia littoral. Kalau dia dalam dan jauh daripada tebing, kita panggil dia limnetic. As you can see from this diagram here, there's also something called a compensation point. A compensation point is that region between the photic and the aphotic zone, where the photosynthesis rate is equal to the respiration rate. Kadar fotosintesis pada kawasan ini sama dengan kadar penggunaan oksigen. Kadar penggunaan oksigen is the respiration rate of organisms in that level. So that means the carbon dioxide that is released from respiration from the organisms in this level is equal to that which is used during photosynthesis. Dia macam ngam-ngam lah. Ini ngam-ngam balance dia antara penghasilan karbon dioksida dan penggunaan karbon dioksida dalam photosynthesis. So begitulah basic dia macam mana mau bahagikan tasik kepada beberapa zon. Saya mau kamu lukis diagram di bawah ini. I want you to draw the diagram at the bottom. So I prefer that you draw this black and white one. If you want to draw your own colored version, that's fine too. Now let's continue looking at those two zones. We have a look on that photic zone and aphotic zone. We'll have a look at the different organisms that you can find. So in the photic zone, this is shallow water, which is also the upper layer where the light is sufficient for photosynthesis. Examples of organisms that you can find here are phytoplanktons, zooplanktons, and fishes. Whereas in the aphotic zone, or the profundal zone, this is the lower layer that receives a little or insufficient light for photosynthesis. This is the deeper water zone. Water does not penetrate here, and there are communities of diverse bacteria. So sini yang memang nampak gelap lah. Okay? And biasanya organism yang kita jumpa pada level ini adalah decomposer, crustaceans, mussels. So these are usually the things that don't need that much light. They're going to eat what they can get. The benthic zone is a zone that we learn about in very deep lakes. It does not exist in shallow lakes because light will penetrate all the way to the bottom of the lake. Tapi kalau tasik itu cukup dalam, dia mungkin ada dia punya benthic zone. Benthic zone includes all the sediments at the bottom. It is the zone of decomposition, and the organisms that you usually find in the benthic zone are the decomposers, detritivores, snails, and clams. Kalau kamu tengok pada diagram macam yang sebelum ini, benthic zone, you see this colored diagram here, the benthic zone is the brown patch over here where the light does not penetrate, and the only thing you have here are the decomposers. and things that eat detritus. Okay, so that is lake zones based on light penetration. Remember, we also have the other criteria for dividing lakes into zones, which is based on the distance from shore and water depth. Kalau kita pisahkan tasik itu kepada kawasan berdasarkan jarak dia daripada tebing dan kedalaman air, kita boleh pisahkan dia kepada littoral zone dan limnetic zone. So in littoral zones, these are well lit. That's why the name is littoral. So this is the shallow water that is closer to the shore. Ini lebih dekat kepada tebing, dia cetek. Diversity is greatest at this zone and photosynthesis rate is high. So sinilah kawasan yang kamu boleh jumpa paling banyak diversity dari segi organism kita. So contoh organism yang kita boleh jumpa di sini, aquatic plants. So segala teratai dan apa segala bunga-bunga aquatic, okay, tumbuh-tumbuhan aquatic biasanya kita akan jumpa di kawasan littoral. And we also find lots of smaller organisms that thrive in this environment as well, such as frogs, crustaceans, and even small fishes in these areas. You also have the area that is further away from the shore and has deeper water. So bila air dia semakin dalam dan semakin jauh daripada tebing, ini sudah masuk kepada kawasan limnetic zone. This area is still well lit, okay? Dalam air tu masih lagi terang, masih lagi cukup cahaya matahari. It is the open surface of water away from the shore. In this open area, you will find example of organisms, phytoplankton, zooplankton, some fishes, and some green algae. Okay, so you can see the difference in the biodiversity and the sizes of the organisms as well. So that is it for the lake ecosystems. I'm now going to move on to the second ecosystem. The second ecosystem is the tropical rainforest ecosystem, and this shouldn't be something that's foreign to us because we are living in the heart of Borneo. We're learning, even stepping out of your own homes before you came to KML, you probably encountered this ecosystem already. So this image here is taken from Kinabalu Park in Sabah, and it is showing the great diversity in the tropical rainforest. Enough rambling, let's have a look. This terrestrial ecosystem that we're going to learn about is tropical rainforest, and it is known as that because it is located in the tropical region. Dia hutan hujan katulistiwa sebab dia di kawasan katulistiwa and receive large amount of rain throughout the year. Dia dapat banyak hujan, so nama dia hutan hujan. Tropical rainforest will have high levels of humidity, so that means there's a lot of water vapor in the air. And we can divide the tropical rainforest into several strata or several levels. So kalau kita bagikan dia kepada beberapa level, kita biasanya boleh dapat 5 level atau 5 stratum. Paling atas adalah emergent, selepas emergent canopy layer, selepas canopy layer understory layer, ataupun kadang-kadang digelar sebagai under canopy. Diikuti dengan shrub layer and forest floor. So I'm going to start from the bottom. Starting from the bottom is the forest floor. This is the area that will receive the least sunlight. So kalau kita masuk kepada kawasan ini, dia akan nampak macam malap-malap, gelap-gelap. It receives only about 0 to 2% of the sunlight. It has very high in humidity, it has low light, and mostly contains rotten leaves and dead animals or decomposers. Also some bryophytes maybe, but mostly, the brown stuff. The next layer is the shrub layer. So ini adalah lapisan tumbuhan-tumbuhan renek. So this shrub layer will receive 2 to 5% of sunlight, and it has the densest plant growth. So a lot of plants are growing out of the shrub layer. The third layer that I'm going to look at from the bottom is the under canopy or understory layer. This layer will receive less sunlight under the canopy, and it usually consists of smaller trees. Ada pokok-pokok juga, ada epiphyte, tapi kebanyakannya yang pendek-pendek. And then followed by the most dense stratum, which is the canopy. In the canopy layer, the leaves and the branches interlock to form a roof for the forest. The canopy contains over 50% of the forest wildlife. So, sinilah kawasan yang paling banyak pokok yang lebih kurang tinggi yang sama. Daun-daun dia pun macam padat dan dia akan membentuk seakan-akan satu atap untuk hutan hujan itu. If you've ever been on a canopy walk, you would know exactly how it feels to walk through this layer. This is also where you find a lot of the trees, a lot of the animals that we usually associate with the rainforest. And last but not least, we have the highest level, which is the emergent layer. This is the ones where very few trees would make to, because the trees that make it to the emergent layer will have to be very strong to withstand the strong wind and high temperature. So, sinila dia punya panas, dia punya angin, dia punya ribut akan kena duluan. Once again, we are revisiting this tropical rainforest stratification. We're looking at the types of plants and the animals that we can find here. Forest floor plants that we can find is mostly mosses and grasses. Examples of animals we will find are worms, snails, and ants. Shrub layers will mostly find ferns. Animals that we can find are usually spiders or reptiles. In the understory, we'll find a lot of lianas. So, benda-benda yang nampak macam akar rotan, kita akan jumpa pada layer understory. Also in this layer are organisms such as snakes, tree frogs, and honeybees. The canopy layer will be consisting of many taller trees and also including orchids. So in the canopy layer, we'd find a lot of birds and monkeys. And in the emergent layers, we'll find the really, really big trees. Inilah kayu-kayu balak yang paling tinggi kita akan jumpa pada emergent layer. Kita akan jumpa kayu tualang, jati, cengal pada lapisan emergent. And also in the emergent layer, we find the eagles and hawks and other birds of prey, which usually like to go into very high areas. Okay, so that is it for the tropical rainforest stratification. Inilah yang kamu perlu tahu pasal tropical rainforest. Ya, start dengan ingat dia punya 5 stratum. Lepas tu baru pelan-pelan ingat ciri-ciri untuk setiap stratum itu. So just a very quick summary of 2.1. In 2.1, you talk about the ecosystem concept where we look at the definition of ecosystem and also the components of the ecosystem, followed by learning about the lake ecosystems and the tropical rainforest ecosystem. That's pretty much it for 2.1. Thank you for your time and attention up to this point. Now I would like you to make your own notes for this subtopic. And in addition to that, draw diagrams illustrating the zones in lake and tropical rainforests. In your diagram, list out the abiotic and biotic factors. So, ambillah kertas ataupun boleh lukis secara digital. Boleh ikut diagram yang simple. Paling bagus kamu ikut diagram yang hitam putih yang saya berikan. Tidak payah cantik sangat kamu punya lukisan pun tidak apa. Yang penting nampak bahawa kamu sedang lukis itu tasik dan itu hutan hujan khatulistiwa punya ekosistem. Nanti tulis saja dia punya abiotic dan biotic factors. Mungkin ada biotic factors yang sama. Mungkin ada abiotic factors yang sama. Tidak list semua pun tidak apa. Tulis saja apa yang kamu tahu. Nanti kita akan upload di GC. That's pretty much it for me. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I will see you again in the next video. Thank you. Bye.